I don't want to connect with you because one day you might buy my services. I don't want to connect with you because one day you might, I don't know, introduce me to some wealthy person. I don't know. It's got to me that doesn't make sense anymore. I want to connect with you because today could be my last day, and I want to connect with you. It feels good. That's what humans do.
Welcome back to Yield Today with Dallin Candland. I'm here with Jem Fuller, and he is a communication transformation coach for executives and anybody else that just vibes with him. And I definitely vibe with him. He's got some good stuff to share, and just excited to dive into his story. So thanks for coming on, Jem.
Hey, Dallin. Thanks for having me on, dude. I've been looking forward to this conversation.
I'm glad to hear it. And you're in Australia, so I'm glad that we're able to do this because this wouldn't have been possible, and like even 10 years ago, probably. So.
Yeah, yeah. And even when it was possible, it just wasn't on the radar. Before COVID, we weren't even thinking about connecting via Zoom and yada yada. And anyway, so here we are now, and we're doing it.
It's cool. I really want to travel this year, like go out of the country for the first time, and that's something you've done a pretty good amount. And I wanted to jump to something you talked about in your TED Talk about your time in Pakistan and how you're able to have some words on hand, and just those couple of words really help those people to know that you like cared about them on a deeper level. Kind of go into that, like what's the power of like knowing some of those words and that kind of lingo.
Oh man, it's just a show of respect, a show of respect of difference. And whenever I go into a new country or a foreign country, I'm gonna do what I can to go into that country with curiosity, with respect. I'm not going in there and asking where the McDonald's is, that's for sure. I'm not going in there and asking them to serve coffee the way I like my coffee back home. I'm going in there and saying, how do you guys drink coffee, kind of thing. And so if I can learn just a few words in the local language, that's just a sign of me showing some effort to want to get to know them and their culture and their ways. Yeah, and it goes a long way. I mean, when I went into Pakistan, I could only speak a handful of sentences in Urdu, but that just opened up a whole new world to me. I was getting invited into homes and being cooked for and cared for, and really the hospitality and the open-heartedness, it just opens up. So it's a pretty simple thing to do. Yeah, yeah.
It's beautiful. I love how when we visit places, like I just visited Vegas for the first time, and it was different than what I thought it would be. Like people say stuff and everything like that. And it was different. There were still some things that kind of lined up, but overall it was different because it was my experience. And that's the beautiful thing, is that when we go into a new place and we have those words, we're willing to talk with those people. We're willing to let somebody create that experience with us, and it can be more memorable.
Yeah, absolutely. If you peel back really just the first layer of veneer of what you see when you meet someone, you don't have to dig too deep to find the commonalities, right? We all need food and shelter. We all, fear the pain of loss and grief. We all, need love and connection with our nearest and dearest. We all have these things in common. You don't have to go too far to find that. And when we can connect on some of the common parts of humanity, then we can explore the differences. Then we can respectfully and with curiosity get involved in what we see differently. If you've got a different opinion to me, that's where the gold is, man. I want to dig in there. I'm like, how do you see it like that, dude? Help me understand. Because when we really can put our fear aside, because we have this inbuilt fear of difference, right? And that's fair enough back in the old days when we were tribal and we were fighting over resources and we had to, be fearful of the next camp because they were going to steal our food or whatever. That made sense. We're living in a different time, man. Wake up, evolve, get on with it, right? We've got enough resource here. If we allocate it properly, we can all thrive. So let's focus on that and harnessing the power of diversity, of neural diversity, right? As well as cultural and ideological and political and blah, blah, blah. When we can harness diversity, man, we're expanding the bandwidth of potential creative solutions to problems, right? I'm going on a bit of a rant here, Dallin, excuse me, but the big problems, the problems that will wipe us all out, climate change, pandemics, inequality, misappropriation of resource, all these bigger problems, they don't discriminate, man. COVID doesn't care what you look like. COVID doesn't care which God you follow, does not care. It gets you all the same, right? Or climate change. Climate change doesn't matter what color your skin is. And it's only us that get caught up in these crappy differences and identify with them. If we can just kind of realize that there's a bigger game going on here and harness the power of diversity, like I said, we might have a chance.
Yeah. It's beautiful. It's interesting because I'm reading a book called Give and Take by Adam Grant. And it's super interesting how he talks about that the people at the highest levels of success are givers, and the people at the lowest ladder of success are also givers. And so we need to know, we need to be very smart about how we give. And we also need to be patient when it comes to exchanging information. But when that information is given, we need to honor it and honor the person, you know, and do what we can to help them out in their journey. And I love what you said about, you know, when people share those differences like that, that is where the gold is. And so a lot of the key to like networking or any of this stuff, in my opinion, is to understand and sense some of this gold and help celebrate that in the person so they can get more of it.
Yeah, absolutely. Did you just say networking?
I did say networking.
I love that. Before I really understood networking properly, but like how it benefits us, and then of course makes sense because we're a communal creature and we have evolved and survived through society through needing each other. Before I understood that deeper value of networking, I used to think networking was, you know, a whole bunch of people coming into a room and trying to sell their stuff to each other, right? That's what I used to think it was. And then I got involved in an awesome official networking, global networking group, and learned a whole lot more about it. And, you know, the value that it brings. If I've got a good, strong network of a variety of different professionals that I trust, then I can be a valuable member in my community. Because a friend might say to me, oh, I really need a lawyer and I don't know who to trust. And I can go, oh man, you've got to go and see John. He's awesome. Or someone might come to me and say, hey, I really need a financial advisor. Where do I go? And I'm, oh, you know, Pam's great at that. Go see her, you know. So there's that part to it. And then to really be successful in networking, it's as simple as making it all about the other person. So when I go to a networking event, my objective when I walk into that room, every time I meet a new person, I want to make it all about them. I want to know about them. I want to hear about what they do, what they offer, you know, how I might be able to refer business to. I make it all about them. And it's funny, if you achieve that objective, if you meet someone for the first time and you don't let them really make it about you, you jump in first and you make it all about them, and they do a lot of talking, and then you leave that conversation, they don't really know anything about you, but guess what they do? They go to their friends and say, hey, I met this guy, Jem. He's such a lovely guy. He's awesome. I love him. And people will say, oh, you know, tell me about him. And they're like, oh, I don't know much about him at all, but I really like him, you know. And it's cool. Yeah, I love honest, good quality networking, man. It's a really important part of you know, being us.
Yeah, it's funny because you don't know everything, but you know enough about the person to be like, I don't know why, I'm going to stay in touch with this person. And it's funny because there's people that I've connected with on LinkedIn, and then later they're like working for this company that I'm like, I've maybe more interested than the other company they're working for. And then maybe I don't want to work for that company, but I can learn about that company from that person. And so you only shoot yourself in the foot. If you're like, oh, that person is a grocer at Walmart, there's no point in connecting with him. It's like, dude, it doesn't matter. You know, I worked at Pizza Hut. I worked at a thrift store last year. It's like, whatever. It's like, it has nothing to do with the potential of the person, really. Like, you can't even, like, can't pretend to measure that. Like, we can make estimates, but I sort of makes think about board games because I love board games, Jem, and like Settlers of Catan is a big one with my family now. It's like you could think somebody is doing like horrible, that they're not doing very well, and then they can be like, they can pull out their cards, but look what I had this whole time. And it's like, hello to everybody that believed in me or that was cheering me on, because now I'm gonna reward you for that. And so you don't go into
Yeah.
it with this person will reward me down the road. You do what you said, and you give. At least that's what I'm gonna do, and
Yeah.
that's what I'm doing. And you never know what
Yeah.
could
And
happen.
it feels good. It feels good, dude. We're all going to die, newsflash, and we don't know when. We don't know. You don't know when you're going to die. I don't know when I'm going to die. I hope I live to old age, but I might be wrong, right? My brother died on his motorbike when he was 30, gone, head on, done, over, right? He didn't see that coming, but he lived an awesome life right up until that accident. Awesome life, loved his life, you know, and the lessons that we can learn from losing loved ones before their time. When I say before their time, I mean before old age, but it was obviously their time, regardless of what age you are. But the lesson to be learned is, do you know what? How do I want to live today? If today was my last day, I want to connect with you because connection feels good. I don't want to connect with you because one day you might buy my services. I don't want to connect with you because one day you might, I don't know, introduce me to some wealthy person. I don't know. It's got, to me, that doesn't make sense anymore. I want to connect with you because today could be my last day, and I want to connect with you. It feels good. That's what humans do. You know, when we live in isolation for whatever reason, our life expectancy is shorter. Our health problems are more chance of depression, anxiety. All of these negative things happen in isolation. When we're in community and our relationships are good and you know, authentic and nourishing, that's our best life. You know,
Yeah.
so yeah.
Yeah, it's beautiful when we give without a thought of getting back, you know.
Yeah.
One of my favorite examples is Thomas Frank. You know, he puts out all these free resources for these Notion templates and puts hours and hours and hours into them. He'll put like 20, 30 hours into this and then make it free. And it's because he genuinely cares about his audience. Like, he has that expectation and that strong belief, like, no matter what, I'm going to be taken care of. What I'm thinking about is this person's problem, like, is there a possibility that they wouldn't have gotten help? Like, if I hadn't done this, you know, he's thinking about those people. And for me, that's a motivator for me, is like, if I didn't make the bar a little lower, at least for getting some kind of access in this way that could really help them, well, what does that say about me? Or what does that mean for that person?
Yeah, yeah, completely. And you know, when someone gets stuck in a level of unidirectional transactional relationships, so I will give you something if you give me something, they're completely blocking themselves off from the massive potential of the flow of this give receive energy, right? When you realize that you might give to someone and what you're receiving in the flow will come from somewhere you didn't even expect, right? Then you're opening yourself up to massive potential in terms of flow. And also you are, what I've found anyway, is that through a practice of focusing on giving, when someone comes to give to me now, I'm much better at receiving. Because a lot of us are not so great at receiving. We're like, oh no, I can't take charity, or no, you can't, that's too generous, or no, I'm not going to accept that thing from you, and do you want something back from me? And we're stuck in that transactional thinking world. When you free yourself from that, you know, if someone comes up to me and says, here, let me sponsor you to build that school in the Himalayan village that you want to build, and that's a true story, by the way, I'm like, wonderful, that's beautiful, thank you. I'm not blocking it. I'm saying, yeah, great, I'll receive that and go build the school in the Himalayan village. Um, and that's through a practice of giving, you know, unconditionally and not transactionally.
How do you think we get to that point where the conversations in our brain are with others or with ourselves are less transactional and more like giving?
Listening, you know, like there'll be someone who hears this conversation and goes, oh, yeah, right. Wow. Okay. You know, so listening, learning, opening our mind, practicing, taking action, you know, facing fear and realizing that I didn't need to be fearful of that thing. You know, meditation, exercise, self-love, affirmations. There's so much to do, and none of it costs anything other than just the willingness to have a crack and do it. You know, but I mean, I guess it takes an inclination some, there's a lot of people who are like, yeah, whatever. And that's fine. 100% fine. You don't have to go on this path of freeing yourself from fear and moving into a world of, abundance and, the stuff. You don't have to. 100%. You can stay where you are, and that's perfectly fine. But if you've got an inclination, then you start reading the books and you start listening to these podcasts and you start exploring what that might look like for you, right?
Yeah, I think making more invitations to yourself for me is helpful, because it's like my love for you isn't going to change, but this could be interesting. I'm inviting you to try this out. And
Yeah.
that's where that's where the curiosity stays pure. That's where all these other things stay more interesting. And I tweaked my ankle yesterday. I was on this run and I like jumped off this hill and didn't realize the hill was that long. I didn't remember it being that long, and I kind of landed kind of poorly, and I still ran the rest of my 4-mile run anyway, and had a good time. But then today when I woke up, I was like, there's no way I'm going to run today, even though today's my mile run day where I time it and I'm trying to break this mile time. But then I realized, you know what? This is fantastic, because I have no excuse to not like write and build stuff on my computer. And so that's what I've been doing a lot of today. It's like, I've done that a little bit, but now it's like, that was my only option, basically. And like,
Yeah.
for me having the ADHD, it's like, this sort of like is the conversation loop we wanted a little bit. It's like, now you have no excuse. Here you go. Enjoy, have fun. And so for me, like that's a beautiful way that the flow of thinking went. And if this, like when this happened like a year or two ago, it was a different conversation.
Yeah. It sounds to me like you're embracing and practicing and getting better at acceptance, and there's a liberation in that, just in that piece alone, letting go of that which you can't control or influence, acceptance of that which you can't control or influence, then frees up all of this capacity that you have to focus on what you can have something to say about or do about. That's cool, man. Well done.
Thank you. Yeah, there's at some point I'll write a book about a lot of this stuff, and one of the chapters, at least if it's about like helping out your mind, would be about the thrill of acceptance, because you accept there's nothing I could have done. There's nothing I can do to change this person's past. I can't do anything to change my past. Isn't that great? This is what I have to work with. I have all these different things, and obviously there's tragedies, and I'm sorry for what happened to your brother, but there is a beauty, because at least for me, it's like my grandma passed and I wasn't ready for that. And now all of a sudden, and I have another friend that passed really early, and it's like, well, now I'm better at doing exactly what you said. I will be on a podcast and be like, this could be the last time you hear me. And so I want to connect. I want to share this. I want you to feel loved from me, because we don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah. There is just so much liberation from suffering and acceptance. And acceptance doesn't mean apathy, right? Acceptance doesn't mean approval. So let's say, for example, when Trump was the president of the United States of America. Now, everyone's entitled to their opinion, of course, absolutely, 100%. Did I think he was a good president? No, I didn't. I just didn't think he was suitable to be president. I accepted that he was president because he was. So I wasn't jumping up and down going, no, this can't be. I was like, well, it should be, apparently, because it is. There he is, right? Did it mean that I approved of him and his lies and deceit? No, of course not. But I accepted, and certainly the past, if you ever hear yourself wasting energy going, that shouldn't have happened. Yeah, but it did. No, but it shouldn't. Yeah, but it did, dude. You're arguing with reality right now, and reality is always going to win.
Oh boy, dude,
right?
That's a quote right there. Shoot.
So you can learn from the past 100% and try and do it differently next time. 100%. That's called growth. That's called evolution. That's wonderful. But wasting energy wishing something wasn't the way it was, or even the way it is right now. I look at people saying, yeah, but I wish I was taller, or I wish I had blue eyes, or I wish I was smarter, or I wish I was this. And it's like, what are you doing? You're wasting a whole bunch of time right now. And in the meantime, you're also creating this kind of self-loathing, like I'm not good enough. Wow, really? And I know that racket, man. I ran that racket on myself for a long time. It took me until I was in my early 40s to figure that out, you know. But the liberation that comes from radical self-acceptance, which means that in this moment, right here, right now, apparently I'm exactly as I'm supposed to be, because here I am. Reality tells me that this is how I'm supposed to be right now. Now, again, footnote, I'm not saying that I don't want to improve or evolve or get better. Of course I do. That's part of it. But right here, right now, I am exactly enough. I'm exactly enough to be who I'm supposed to be, which is me, because here I am, you know. And so I love that. I love that. And it frees up. So when we can come to this and practice this on a daily basis, it frees up a whole bunch of your own resource, energy, mental, emotional, physiological energy that I used to be spending on stuff that I couldn't change. And now I'm freed up going, wow, I'm actually okay with me. How are you? Right? I've got so much more bandwidth now to make it about you and life around me. I can get out there and serve because I'm not getting in my own way, because I'm not wasting time going, well, I'm so this or I'm so that. It's like, get over yourself. You're fine. Go and do some good work. You know.
Yeah, I think we got to where I wanted to go, at least a part of where I wanted to go is like letting yourself feel these things, you know, like last night I was like tired and I watched some basketball stuff and it's cool to watch some basketball stuff. And I watched some like video about this guy chasing his dreams or whatever. And I just had it to like clear thought because I feel like I've been practicing this really well. And it's like, Dallin, like, what are you doing right now? It's like you have pain, you have this desire, you have this strong desire of all these things you want to do with your life and all these strong, like this understanding of your purpose and whatever. And that's beautiful, but this isn't helping. And so I was like, I just basically like, shut the computer and I just did some thinking and some writing. And that was a beautiful moment. It's like, I turned away from that. And I leaned into the parts that are not going to change and the parts that are going to stick around longer, because that is what I have a lot more control over, is how long I stick around or how long I stay in the game or how long I do X, how long I stay in the negative rumination cycles. I have a lot of control over that.
Yeah, absolutely. And we can develop our ability to move through any state of being more seamlessly, more easily, with less friction. We can develop that ability. One of the ways to develop the ability of the mind, because it's all in the mind, right? Everything we experience, we receive data from the environment around us, and we receive data through our senses. We see, hear, taste, touch, smell. We receive data and we project that data as a hallucination in our mind, right? So it's all a controlled hallucination. There is a real environment around us, but our perception of it is a hallucination. And that hallucination, that projection, is completely affected by our state of mind. If you're in a good mood, you see something and it's different to if you're in a bad mood, right? So that's a very simple way of explaining that. But anyway, so everything is in our mind. And so why would we not want to develop the ability of and the quality of our mind, right? We get healthy body, you go for a run, healthy body. What about healthy mind? So the practice of mindfulness and mindfulness meditation is one of the ways to develop the ability of the mind. And essentially in this practice, you are getting better at observing, not just turning a blind eye. No, focusing on anything that you can notice in your conscious awareness and simply observing it with attention to the detail. So what do I mean by that? Say you're experiencing an emotion, say you're experiencing severe frustration, and you're sitting there and you're stuck in this frustration and your mental emotional looping because the thoughts are going, and you're thinking, but that shouldn't, and then you're feeling frustration, and then your thoughts are going, oh, now I'm feeling frustrated, and then and maybe you're trying to go to sleep and you're experiencing insomnia and you're getting really, all of that can be an object of observation. You can move beyond identification with that, and you can simply observe it. You can observe the thoughts. You can observe the emotion manifesting as a physical sensation in your body. Perhaps there's a temperature change somewhere. Perhaps there's a sensation of pressure, something, and you're not trying to sweep it under the rug. No, you're really noticing it, but from a place of observation, not identification, right? And as you get better at this, when you simply observe things with no attachment, guess what happens? They beautifully dissipate. And you find yourself coming to this place of equanimity, right? Calm centeredness. And it's like, wow, and you can become the driver of your own bus, right? So rather than being a passenger on this bus of the physiological situation, so something happens in the outside world, you get triggered, you react, you have an emotional response, you have a mental response, and then you're in a mood that you weren't in a second ago, but now you're in this mood and you're stuck in it for ages. As you develop this ability of the mind, which is kind of like a superpower, you can go into observation, notice it, be curious, and it disappears. And you're back to being calm and centered again. And you're like, wow, I'm driving this bus. It's cool.
Yeah. I made an episode about like storms of life and different things to keep in mind in storms of life. And one of the real takeaways I got out of it, because when you create these things, when you share these things or write these things down, your brain will come up with stuff. It will make a Krabby Patty, if we're thinking of SpongeBob, like really quickly, because you have all the materials. You have all the materials right now. And so when you're like, okay, now we're going to do it, it's going to come together, even if it takes time. And so one of the things was that this storm is going to end. No storm is going to last forever. That's not possible. Like what I was experiencing last year is completely different from this year. I'm still growing and there's still struggles and change and pain, but it's different. It's different. So that is something to be thankful for and interested about, is like, what's the next season of me going to look like? We see it with TV shows, like the character's always changing a little bit. Maybe some characters getting stupider and stupider. It's like, I thought he was cool and now he's getting really annoying, or whatever. And it's like, we get to influence that. And we can be like, okay, this is what I want coming up next in the life of me, and I believe we can like pray, we can get perspective, we can learn, and people can be put in our lives to help us get there. And then we can start from there. And for me, like that's sort of like starting like a prompt, like a writing prompt. But then once you're in there, that prompt, now we know what we actually want to do. And then we can go after that. So we have to start somewhere.
Yeah, it's true. And what you were saying about everything will change, this too shall pass. That is one of the fundamental laws of the universe. Everything is in a state of flux. There's the two things that are 100% definite. It's not death and taxes. He can avoid taxes, right? He can go and live in Andorra in Europe and not pay taxes. The two things that are definitely happening, death and change. Change, whether you like it or not. Everything is in a state of flux. And when you surrender, let go, accept, you actually allow the flow of change to happen more easily, rather than holding on and trying to grip onto something and resisting something. Then the change is happening regardless whether you like it or not. It's just a much bumpier ride for you because you're resisting it,
Well, you're holding the wheel so tightly that like everything feels like an earthquake. Yeah, that was me end of college for sure. I was like in denial, frustrated, feeling like, what did I even accomplish? Blah, blah, blah. And just kind of looking at a lot of things to give me validation or to give me evidence. I could even look at the podcast at the time and be like, this isn't making me money. And you don't even look at like some of the intangibles, like different things you learn or relationships in that moment. And then you can start to cloud yourself, and it's dangerous, but yeah.
Going with that metaphor, that you were saying, if you're gripping onto the wheel so tightly, if you imagine that you're at the helm of a ship and you're sailing and you have a destination in mind and you're fixed on getting to that destination, and then a storm comes out of nowhere, now you can either stay determined on your destination, even though the storm's trying to blow you off course, and you can fight it as much as you want, but Mother Nature will win. The storm will smash you. Or you can go, hang on, how can I harness this storm? How can I change my direction and harness the power of Mother Nature right now and go with the flow of this storm and just go in a different direction? And it becomes easier and it becomes exhilarating. And now the winds are behind your sails and you're skipping over these waves and it's like and then the storm, you move through the storm and the storm dissipates and you end up in this beautiful place that you didn't even know existed. And you're like, wow, how on earth did I discover this nirvana? I went with the flow, man. That's what I did.
Yeah. No, I love that. And that's something I definitely have heard in different ways on the podcast for sure. And that was something else I mentioned in that episode was how all this rain, all this storm is watering something. It's watering something. It's giving love and maybe not necessarily love, but just nourishment and some kind of something to something. It is no matter what, because whenever I have a really rough day now, I get really excited because I know there's a poem, there's something that's dying to get out, and so when I turn to myself and be like, okay, I need to work on these couple things, and then I will give myself this hour or whatever to work on that or get something out of that. There's something really healing and beautiful about that. But yeah, when we just kind of let the flow happen, that's something I've been letting happen lately. Just let things be. It's like if it's meant to be, then it's kind of going to happen. You don't have to worry about it. You just kind of put yourself out there, and yeah, you just don't need to worry about that.
Important. That's an important ingredient into this recipe that you're talking about when you said put yourself out there, because some people could misconstrue it and say, oh, just let it all happen, kick back. I'm just going to kick back on my couch and I'm going to smoke cones, and just let it'll all come to me. Everything I want will just come to me. Nah, sorry, you got to get off the couch. You got to put the bong down and get out into the big wide world and get involved, So it's this beautiful balance of allowing what will be, allowing, and also at the same time getting involved, having a crack, giving. It's a beautiful balance. And there's an acronym. I didn't come up with this and I can't remember who did, but I came across this acronym maybe 10 years ago and I've been using it to this day. It's super cool. Easy to remember, C.I.A, famous acronym, but it's obviously not the American spy organization. C stands for control. So there are some things in your life you can control. If you can control something and you want to change it or improve it or it shouldn't be there at all, give it 100% of everything you got. A lot of things in your life you can't control, but I stands for influence. So you might have some influence over the situation. And I get quite specific. If I think I've got 20% influence, it gets 20% of my blood, sweat, and tears. If I think I've got 80% influence, it gets 80%. But then there's a lot of things you can't control, you've got no influence over. A stands for accept. They go straight in the accept basket. If something's in the accept basket, it gets 0 from me. None of my worry, none of my anxiety, none of my sleepless nights. It gets nada, right? And so we can use this category each day. And if I'm looking at a problem, I'm going, can I control it? No. Do I have any influence over it? No. Accept basket. Right, now I'm going to shift my thinking to what I do have some control or influence over. And I know it's a very simple acronym and process, but there's power in simplicity, right?
Bro, I'm going to use that 100% because I found for me, like with the ADHD, I generally yearn for things to get some kind of basket of a sort, so it has some kind of place I can put it in my brain so it's not running around, like a toddler running around naked or something. It's like, what am I supposed to do about that? It's like, well, I have to catch him, but then what do I do? It's like, it's like
put it in the accept basket. Hey, and how's this, Dallin? Something that I've found. This is cool. You'll dig this, right? So our thoughts, our monkey brain thoughts are persistent, and especially if they feel like they're being cheeky and unwanted, right? So you'll put the thing in the accept basket and an hour later it jumps back out again. You can't keep me in the accept basket. I'm still going to think about this again, right? And you go, oh, okay, back in the accept basket, right? So it's a practice. And then 2 hours later, you're stressing out over that same thing again, going, yeah, but that's not right, And then you put it back in the accept basket. So it's this ongoing practice. But guess what happens? Neuroplasticity, neural association. As neurons join the dots between each other repetitively over time, certain neural pathways become a path of least resistance. They become an associated thought that fires more easily and more easily over time. And what I've found with 10 years of the C.I.A. acronym, I'm literally getting better at acceptance. So I'll put something in the accept basket and I don't think about it again. Right? Whereas 10 years ago, I'd put it in the accept basket. An hour later, I'd have to put it back in and so on. But over time of actually doing that, less and less do they jump out of the accept basket. It's very, very literally like learning how to serve a tennis ball. You know, if you've never served a tennis ball and you try and throw the ball in the air and hit it over the net into the square, right? You're not very good at it. I guarantee you, if you stand there and serve that tennis ball for hours every day, you just get better and better and better. Then you get to a point where neurologically the mind-body connection is just unconscious competence. You're not even aware. You just throw the ball in the air and you serve it, right? So it's the same with anything that we do repetitively, like acceptance, and using a tool like C.I.A, because like you said, you can compartmentalize it and visualize it and go, right, pop that there. And over time, you get better at it, man. So enjoy.
That's dope. Yeah, I'm 100% going to use that. So that's awesome. Well, I think there's just such a power to zero, like literally zero. Like that is the focus, is that there will be zero attention whatsoever. You know,
Yeah.
there's something about that. So I love that so much.
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah. Well, how can we get in touch with you? And is there anything else you'd share with anybody that is going through a storm of life and things just seem like they're just kind of getting beat on really hard by life right now?
Mm. Well, you are exactly where you're supposed to be right now, apparently, because there you are. So reality tells me that. And reality will always win. So stop fighting with reality. Have a look forwards. You're exactly who you're supposed to be right now, and you are completely enough to be you. And that's all you should be, apparently, because there you are, right? So there's some freedom in that, going, okay, all right, I'm going to stop wasting my energy on arguing with reality. Here I am. But now let me look forward. And now let me look at what potential different step could I take that I haven't taken before? What potential different way of approaching the future could I do that's not the past? I'm not going to replicate. Just get curious, ease up on yourself. Here you are. And one other thing I would offer is, if you're feeling like you're in a bit of a funk, you're feeling kind of like life's pretty full on right now and you're feeling a bit stuck, think of somebody else that you could do something for. Anyone. Someone you know or someone you don't know, a stranger in the street or a loved one. Just think of someone else and something you could do for them, and go do that thing. And notice how you feel afterwards.
There's so much
Because you
beauty.
do. You just go, oh, that felt good. Yeah, that felt good. Do more of that, right? Just keep doing more of that. So that's what I would offer. And in terms of people getting in touch with me, man, I'm completely accessible. If you flick me an email, I'll respond. And you can do that through gemfuller.com, everything through my website. I'd love it if you go and watch my TEDx talk. That'd be cool. It just clocked over 200,000 views this week. And I'm like, wow, man, 200,000 people have seen that. That's cool. And my book, The Art of Conscious Communication for Thoughtful Men, if you're interested, if you like reading, I'd love you to read my book. And follow me on Insta, man. I post stuff every day on Insta if you're interested in little tidbits of helpful stuff.
That's good. Yeah, I didn't realize you had a book, so I will definitely look into that. And yeah, definitely check out that TED Talk. I feel like it's just it sounds super cliche, but it is a gem. And with gems, they shine different in different moments. And so when you come back to it, I could come back to it in maybe 5 years when hopefully I'm married, but if not, that's okay, because
Yeah.
apparently it's okay,
Yeah.
but like like I'll get something different out of it than I got out of it the first time, or I'll probably watch it again another time and another time, because I've now talked with you, and so I see it from a different lens than other
Yeah,
people
that's
do.
right. Yeah, beautiful. Hey, dude, thank you so much for having me on your show.
Yeah, dude, it was super fun having you on, and we'll definitely have to talk again down the road, and just keep up all the great stuff you're doing. I hope people reach out to you, and yeah, just I love this. This is great. So thank you.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah.